Minister, try and paraphrase your answers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
The reason why, Mr. Speaker, I have to go this length to answer in detail is, Mr. Speaker, there is a misconstrued position in the public that certain constituencies or certain counties or certain communities are getting projects more than the others. Mr. Speaker, I have overemphasized that should there be unfair distribution of these resources, Mr. Speaker, the problem squarely lies in the House that allocates the resources. Mr. Speaker, I will be willing, Mr. Speaker, I will be willing to be educated where else budget takes place in the Republic of Kenya. The only supreme august house in the Republic of Kenya which allocates resources and not, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Minister, take your seat. Honorable members, let's take the answer. Minister, try and paraphrase. Yes. You have made your policy statement. Avoid the temptation to appear as if you are lecturing members. Order, I need no assistance. I need no assistance from any one of you. Avoid the temptation to appear as if you are lecturing members. Answer the question. Indeed, many of these members keep coming to my chamber to raise the same questions. That's why you've been called here. When he finishes, I'll give you time to ask questions. I had allocated 45 minutes. I'll even allocate more time for you to ask questions and be satisfied with what the minister is doing in your constituencies and elsewhere in the country.
For the assurance of the House, Mr. Speaker, I will be tabling itemized budget by this House past this financial year, clear with indication of the money for every road and for every county and for every constituency. So that, Mr. Speaker, it becomes clear that there is no other entity in this country or in the world that budgets for roads for our country except this honorable august House. Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate, therefore, that these projects were misconstrued as an introduction of new projects. For avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, the replacements of non-performing contractors, I'm just giving a summary of what you say, as you said, Mr. Speaker, that for the avoidance of doubt, the replacement of these non-performing contractors, some of whom have abandoned the site, is continuous, and after termination, the replacement of these contractors will be done through an open tender as provided in an annex that I have here, which is part of the advertisement just after the one Honorable Mbui spoke about. Mr. Speaker, the annex we are provided indicates that the number of projects that were retendered by KERA, anyone looking at the advert also in isolation, Mr. Speaker, would be forgiven to think that it's new projects or it is giving advantage to certain counties as against the other. Mr. Speaker, some of these re-advertised projects were initially tendered in the years 2015, 2016, 2017, and the contractors were unable to deliver to date. It was only in the interest of justice in these counties that the KERA re-advertises them as approved by the Attorney General. Some of the counties in the annexure, Mr. Speaker, include Homa Bay, Kisii, Nandi, Baringo, Kakamega, and Makueni. Mr. Speaker, as indicated earlier, each year Parliament, in its wisdom, allocates resources to various projects across the country, which are later advertised by three road agencies, including KERA. A large portion of these projects is actually implemented by KERA. Therefore, the extraction of the public participation projects without the benefit of background can be easily mislead the public to think some of these projects are being funded afresh, when in reality, Parliament in its wisdom is using the budget process to add resources to address inequality. So as I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, there is no better institution that can understand the origin of these projects than the National Assembly itself. And there are no greater public officers to explain the wisdom behind the allocation than the members of this august House. In summary, therefore, Mr. Speaker, the notice published on 29 September 2023 by KERA was not a budget or an instrument of allocating resources. Instead of KERA waiting until other approved projects across the country were ready to commence procurement, thus delaying those which are ready, KERA moved this budget towards procurement in the expectation that subsequent budgets will follow. As a matter of fact, the notice was followed by subsequent notices and others will still follow. I believe that by moving with speed on procurement matters at all times, KERA is fulfilling its mandate and meeting the expectation of this House. The final part of the response, Mr. Speaker, is in relation to the question about the factors influencing allocation of funds to projects. It is seen in this response to part 1 above that the initial budget allocation proposal for development vote are generated by agencies of the ministry, taking into account the following, which I repeat for purpose of clarity: completion of the ongoing projects, availability of fiscal space for new projects, government policies and strategic directions concerning infrastructure development taken together with technical and economic feasibility, equity and regional balance. The initial budget proposal are then subjected to extensive review before eventually being enacted by Parliament on one project per line basis. I submit for consideration of this august House that there are no unexplained discrepancies in allocation of projects funds, that no counties have been omitted. Concerning the published KERA notice of 29 September 2023, where a batch of ready tenders was submitted for procurement, it is seen that subsequent publication of more budgets of ready tenders will address the remainder of the projects which are captured in the budget approved by Parliament. Indeed, there would have been a risk that the publication of future budgets of tenders in which those tenders were not on 29 September 2023 are of course not mentioned, could have generated another wave of concern of iniquity in the reverse direction, were it not for you, Mr. Speaker, and this House granting me the opportunity to explain this issue during this session. Mr. Speaker, the Minister has taken measures to ensure equitable and fair allocation of funds for the improvement of roads and drainage structures.
You have 10 minutes, Minister.
Improvement structures in light of the prevailing weather circumstances. These measures include the Ministry's playing an active role as part and parcel of the National Disaster Response Team being Coordinator Minister of Interior to ensure that we respond to the El Nino situation. Number 2, under the Equalization Fund, Mr. Speaker, this House approves a budget that deals with marginalized areas, and the Ministry, through its agencies, implements the same. Minister also, Mr. Speaker, by ensuring prompt, simultaneous and adequate disbursement of RMLF funds to all constituents to enable the timely tendering and commencement of works. Ministry, through Kenya Roads Board, continues to review applications from county governments on roads that have matured enough to be moved to national level, Mr. Speaker, for reconsideration depending on the resources that are available. 4th, equal allocation RMLF to KERA under 22 and 10% are usually advertised in 2 ways, which I have explained. If it is less than 10%, 10 million, Mr. Speaker, in the region, and if it's above that, it is advertised at the national level. 5th, as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, the notice that was in public domain contains only engineers' estimates, and it is not, Mr. Speaker, the actual cost, which will be determined after advertisement and when the tender is awarded, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, utilizing the remaining 7 minutes, let me say this. Mr. Speaker, we are in danger when it comes to the road maintenance levy. And this is where this discussion is coming from. Mr. Speaker, the primary source of this road maintenance levy is levy applied designated to petroleum, which is 18 shillings per litre. A challenge has emerged in recent years in terms of revenue collected under fuel levy. In 2021-2022, it was 87 billion, Mr. Speaker. In 2022-2023, it was 86. In this financial year, Mr. Speaker, it's still 86 billion. In short, the collection of fuel levy has stopped increasing, and in the worst case scenario, may reduce going forward. This situation will not improve if electric mobility picks up quickly as anticipated. While the rate of the fuel levy has remained static for about 7 years, inflation has continued to chip away the purchasing power of the amount collected. It is notable that in 2016, the price of litre for petrol was Kenya shillings 95, while the levy was 18. 7 years later, Mr. Speaker, the price of this petrol is 218, while the fuel levy is still 18 shillings. While the fuel levy collection trend has flattened, the length of the roads, primarily rural roads, which have been upgraded to bitumen standards over the last 10 years, has increased by 4,000 kilometers. These newly upgraded roads need to be maintained. There is a comprehensive and modern approach to road maintenance known as performance-based maintenance. Under this approach, a service provider is engaged competitively to provide maintenance, which is measured in terms of specified output indicators, such as whether surface damage has been repaired promptly, drains are cleared, and the vegetation is always trimmed below a given height. The performance-based approach gives strong incentives to serve providers to do quality work at all times, since it is the most efficient way to avoid repeat jobs and associated costs. In the ideal scenario, a road should be placed under active performance-based maintenance immediately it's constructed and throughout the lifetime until new major upgrade. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the National Highway Authority, whose heavily trafficked roads are well placed to benefit from performance-based maintenance, is currently not able to roll out this approach due to insufficient funds despite getting 40% of the fuel levy. The backlog of the road maintenance for the national highways is actually increasing, meaning that we may start to see potholes on major arteries due to delayed interventions. The Urban Roads Authority is not faring any better. Whereas the mandate of KURA is to maintain roads classified as urban national roads, in practice, KURA has had to intervene massively in cities, major towns, and county headquarters across the country. KURA is suffering from lack of resources to discharge this mandate. However, the most alarming situation, Mr. Speaker, is rural roads. The Rural Roads Authority does not have a robust mechanism to secure funds for any kind of regular maintenance of paved rural roads, let alone performance-based maintenance. The sad truth is that the paved roads under KERA are orphans in financial sense. As a matter of fact, members of Parliament, through the Constituent Roads Committee, are opposed to any attempt, Mr. Speaker, to allocate any money under 22% or 10% on maintenance of tarmac roads, Mr. Speaker. It is therefore true to say, Mr. Speaker, we are waiting a catastrophe. No wonder many Kenyans are complaining of potholes in many rural roads across the country, especially the low-volume seal roads. Mr. Speaker, the implications of the non-availability of funds for maintenance of the rural roads are clear. If a solution is not found for rural roads, the recently paved rural roads will be deteriorate rapidly, and both the minister and indeed the distinguished members will face difficult questions for which we will not have immediate answers from the public. A significant portion of rural roads which are upgraded to be paved roads standard were constructed in expectation that traffic volumes were minimal and relatively low expectation would suffice. In practice, economic activities are promptly picked up as new roads were opened to traffic for specific loading. Overloading has caused distress on several pavements. This makes effective maintenance even more urgent and necessary. It is in this context, Mr. Speaker, that the portion of the report of the National Dialogue Committee, which mentions a reduction of Kenya shillings 5 per litre in fuel levy, should give us a pause of reflection concerning the consequences of the road sector. Going forward, we anticipate the government will be reverting to this distinguished House for assistance and support in relation to securing adequate funds for maintenance of the various classes of national roads. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, in another 3 minutes, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, we have challenges with the development vote. This is only 3 minutes and I'll conclude. Then I will get the necessary guidance from this House.
You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Having outlined the basic principle of fund allocation under the development vote, allow me to go to specific details in regard to the challenges of road financing, which have a bearing on the project implementation and equitable allocation of funds. In summary, Mr. Speaker, it is not true that the Ministry of Roads and its agencies are in any way marginalizing any part of our country. Instead, the ministry works hand in hand with this august House to ensure resources are distributed fairly across the country. Mr. Speaker, the State Department of Roads has a significant budget deficit, leading to inadequate allocation of road projects. The implementation of the Road 10,000 program from the year 2013-2014, which took place in the absence of anticipated progressive rise in budget ceilings by the National Treasury, led to a portfolio of projects not being adequately funded. The rollout of Road 10,000 program ended a full circle in 2017-2018, when net government GOK budget stress started being witnessed. In the first and second years of the Road 10,000 program, an average allocation was given to be 20 billion provided. It was expected that this allocation would progress upwards. However, over time, ceiling allocation for roads in state started diminishing into an average of 55 billion from the year 2017-2018. In the 2021-2022 financial year, the State Department of Roads had allocation of 55 billion for contracts against, Mr. Speaker, an outstanding project portfolio of 900 billion shillings as of July 1st, 2022. In order to address the issue of outstanding portfolio vis-a-vis the resource available, the State Department embarked on reduction of portfolio, which currently stands at 700 billion. The reduction entailed dropping some planned but not yet awarded projects. With an average of 55 billion GOK component for contracted works and land compensation, the outstanding portfolio will take a minimum of 15 years to complete, assuming all factors remain constant, including inflation, claims, and interest. The limited allocation vis-a-vis the outstanding project portfolio result in thinly spread allocation for projects. Most of the projects that current government is implementing were awarded prior to 2020-2021 financial year. In order to address the issue of marginalized counties in terms of roadworks, the State Department would have to increase the portfolio of projects to address the disparity. This would, however, mean even thinner spread of allocation and more years to complete any of these projects. Mr. Speaker, the thin spread of GOK funding available means the road projects take longer to complete, become more expensive due to passage of time, and attract interest and more claims. Mr. Speaker, and this is my last and important point, in the current financial year, the government of Kenya allocation from this house for Department of Roads is 76 billion, against the request by the National Treasury of 250 billion. The State Department therefore started the financial year with a budget shortfall of 70%. During the first supplementary budget, the 76 billion was reduced to 61 billion, Mr. Speaker. Out of the allocated 61 billion, the amount for the development of the roads is 46 billion, has been allocated for development. This inadequate budget provision vis-a-vis the huge portfolio of road projects has led to stalling of road projects everywhere in the country. And Mr. Speaker, I need to insist, everywhere in the country, because in one part of the country, they think another part is being considered. And if you go to that part, they think another part has been considered. Mr. Speaker, out of the outstanding GOK portfolio, there is a component of 155 billion pending bills as at 30th of October 2023. The available money to service those pending bills is 46 billion, which is less than 1/3 of the provision required to pay outstanding bills on road projects, in addition to more work that will be certified within the remaining portion of financial year. In association with the large stock of pending bills...
Time up, Minister.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, if I don't make this last point, it will not complete on the development.
How many minutes?
Give me 3. Then
minutes.
I'll finish. I actually have 2 pages, so it may be less than 3. In association with the large stock of pending bills in the requirement to pay interest of the same and resourced by contractors to claims to recover the cost, in this regard, the ministry is considering to propose a new legislation to be brought to this house to cap the potential liabilities from inadequate funded projects in the manner similar to in Duplam rule, Mr. Speaker. Because we have now a situation where a road is awarded 1 billion, but the claims are about 3 or 4 billion in the same road because it's been abandoned, and their claims and their interest, Mr. Speaker. Delayed release of budget of GOK Exchequer also impacts the development of roads. It is expected that once the budget has been approved, the Exchequer would optimally be released in tranches as the year progresses. In the current financial year, Mr. Speaker, against the budget of 76 billion under printed estimates, Mr. Speaker, the only releases we have received up to now is 6 billion shillings. to serve, Mr. Speaker, pending roads of 155 billion and a budget of 76 billion. Even when you sit in that office and contractors are coming asking for support, Mr. Speaker, you wonder if you spread 6 billion against a claim of 155 billion, which contractor would you give money to go on site, on which one would you not? If you give a contractor who is claiming 2-3 billion, you give them 100 million, they are unable to mobilize to go on site. And that is the true situation as we have in our country. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I have already touched on the matter of public participation projects while answering the questions above. But Mr. Speaker, these public participation and other projects that are introduced to satisfy constitutional requirements could be perceived to contribute to skewed net of allocation unless, Mr. Speaker, and it will cause the situation that we have now. If you see members are angry here because they come to my office the way they come to your office, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the questions is the public participation funded roads allocated by this House every year. And Mr. Speaker, unless there is a proper sensitization and, Mr. Speaker, a full discussion by this chamber in a honest manner about the appropriation of these public participation funds, Mr. Speaker, this feeling of marginalization will continue. Most of these maintenance roads under public participation initiative are implemented by KERA. It is notable that all roads under the development budget are itemized and approved by this House. Once Parliament has appropriated and approved the specific project to be implemented, the road agencies will implement. Mr. Speaker, I have a suggestion that, Mr. Speaker, instead of this House, and I can only suggest because this House is supreme to all of us, instead of this House allocating the 21 billion to either new projects or projects that are below 10 million or maintenance of roads, Mr. Speaker, if this 21 billion was available to support the pending bills, Mr. Speaker, most of our contractors would have come back to site to make sure that those roads are progressing. But this is a suggestion. I have no control as to this House, what this House decides, Mr. Speaker. I am just suggesting to the House that if you can consider, Mr. Speaker, supporting the pending bills, it will be great. While the ministry is committed to equity, it is worth noting that some of the factors considered in discussion about inequity, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I conclude by saying this. Not all is gloom, Mr. Speaker. The government has been working extremely hard for the last 1 year to speak to our development partners, both bilateral and multilateral. I speak with experience, Mr. Speaker, because you know, and I have appraised you on this issue. I have had to travel to many different parts of this world, Mr. Speaker, and particularly to one of our bilateral partners' countries to try to request them to consider supporting us. Mr. Speaker, the conversations are in advanced stage. Mr. Speaker, I believe that in another 2 or so months, I should be able to come back to this chamber, if invited again, to give the good news to honorable members that some of our critical number of our roads will resume, Mr. Speaker, thanks to the efforts we are working to make sure that those development partners support us. And Mr. Speaker, with utmost respect, I want to thank those development partners for listening to the Republic of Kenya and for listening to Excellency the President, having been a member of his delegation to many of these countries to deal with this issue. The last issue, Mr. Speaker, is to thank the development partners for helping us deal with the question of Eurobond, because this is where the devil lies. It is the Eurobond payment, Mr. Speaker, that is due of $2 billion that has made it impossible for us to either borrow for infrastructure or, Mr. Speaker, to be able to get other resources allocated, and even for our budget to be constricted, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I sit down, many members here may feel that I am a bit hard when it comes to the question of these public resources. Mr. Speaker, I have been a victim, Mr. Speaker, of Mr. Speaker, berating, harassment on something, Mr. Speaker, I have zero control. If I had a chance to sit where my colleagues sit, and we have sat with them in this House, Mr. Speaker, I would use this floor to, Mr. Speaker, correct the injustice and the marginalization. Because if you take this punishment to an innocent cabinet secretary who has zero role in allocating of money or budget, Mr. Speaker, it would be unfair in the Republic of Kenya. And I say this, Mr. Speaker, with all my heart. I am the only cabinet secretary, I don't want to praise myself, who has invited as many counties, I'm now in county number 26, to come for an open discussion without considering a political side, to ask ourselves, how shall we deliver on this very difficult road function in the absence of the budget that we have been given? So, Mr. Speaker, even when we feel the pain, and I have spoken to my friends here, when we feel the pain, and the pain of our voters saying we are stuck in mud, the roads are not progressing, this pain is a collective responsibility of leadership at such a time as this. And I promise this House, I will not sleep until we succeed to return all the contractors to go on site. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, honorable members. This was Robert Mboi's question. The minister, hold on. The CS is no longer on the floor, so there's nothing out of order. The question belongs to Robert Mbui, but the minister has wandered far and wide on the issue. I'll give the first shot to the questioner, Robert Mbui. Then I'll give Minister, you note the questions. I'll give 5. You answer. Those will be joyriders. After the first 5, I'll give another 5. Depending on the interest, I'll see what to do. I'll start with Robert Mbui, the questioner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. CS has just said he will not sleep until all pending roads are completed. I have one in my constituency, and I don't know whether you'll be awake for 3 months, because you said you get money in 3 months. But, Mr. Speaker, from the response of the CS, one of the things I noted is, which I think is something you need to address, is when you say the ministry cannot identify where the roads are located.
Correct.
It's important that,
Minister,
I don't know.
You are not allowed to engage the members on the floor.
No, Mr. Speaker, you know, he was in the House.
Listen, take notes, and you'll answer the question.
Yeah, but Mr. Speaker, now, when we, on the issues that is answered, one of the issues that comes up, Mr. Speaker, is a 10%, because he spent a lot of time explaining how the money is distributed under the Kenya Roads Board Act. But, Mr. Speaker, my question was basically very specific on the tender notice, and I think he handled the tender notice issue properly, in my opinion. But, Mr. Speaker, in the allocation of money, there is 10% that is administered in accordance with the road sector project approved by the CS of Transport himself and the CS for Treasury. And this is for emergencies, Mr. Speaker, like El Nino. Currently, we are experiencing El Nino. The hard-hit counties are in northeastern, eastern, and the coast, Mr. Speaker. I would like to understand from the minister whether that 10% has been spent more in that area that I've mentioned, where, Mr. Speaker, you are aware, one of our members from Eastern lost a brother because of floods, and 2 of our members were marooned a whole night the other day from Tana River, Mr. Speaker. So I want to know whether the 10% is allocated fairly to the areas of El Nino.
Thank
and then,
you.
Mr. Speaker, just to finish, Mr. Speaker, because one of the reasons that he's pointed out as a problem that this was an advertisement by Kera and it was not exhaustive. Mr. Speaker, why can't Kera allow each constituency or county to advertise for their roads so that we stop seeing one advert and then all of us are convinced that that is a national cake being distributed? Isn't it fairer and possible that every county or every constituency can advertise their roads even when they go beyond 10 million? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Moses Sirma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
And for joyriders, only one question.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to confirm that one of the counties who have visited the CS in his office is Baringo County, and I was there. Mr. Speaker, marginalization is real. Marginalization is real. And I want to take advantage of, I want to take this opportunity to talk about my constituency. We have 3 roads which are just passing through my constituency. One was done by the colonial government. The second one was done by the Kenyatta government. The other one was just a road which was done by Moi to go to his house. So, in other words, all other governments have never.
Ask him a question.
Can you use we want this issue of marginalization. Could you consider those constituencies which have not gotten a road for a long time to be considered right now appropriately, as they have not been considered in the past government? Can I be a beneficiary of this government? Thank you.
Yes. Rosa Buyu. Rosa Buyu.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the minister or the CS is actually saying that his office is open to everybody and he sees so many people in other counties. Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to ask the CS, is this all the counties in this country, or is it for only the shareholding counties? Because I've tried time and again to get to the minister, and it is impossible. Impossible.
Thank you. Who is the member at the end? Is that a member for Turkana or for? No, the member behind you. I can't see that far. That is Honorable Akucha, is it? Go ahead.
Thank you, Speaker. My name is Emathe Namwar.
Yes,
the
Namwar.
MP for Turkana Central.
I can't see you very clearly.
Turkana Central is the headquarters of Turkana County.
I know
Thank
you are not Turkana. Ask your question.
Thank you, CS, for coming, and thank you, Speaker. Now, the point I want to put across actually is, they say the arrow is not afraid to shoot from the bow, but it is afraid to reach the target. Why am I saying that? Is because I have heard the minister, and he has actually said that the problem lies in this house. And that is where the rubber meets the tarmac. Why does Turkana, Samburu, and these other counties get zero allocation, and we have other counties like Muranga, like Kiambu? Actually, 15 counties are getting zero allocation, while others are getting a lion's share. That is the point. And he has gone ahead to say the budget or anything that he receives is itemized. The question is, how can the minister prevent such kind of cannibalism and marginalization of some areas getting an allocation of zero? Because I know there are people who are sitting in committees
You have
that's
asked your
responsible
question.
with the past.
Next, honorable member.
And so, Speaker,
Likuyani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Question.
Yeah, just one question. On his submission, the CS alluded that there are certain constituencies, and he mentioned Kikuyu, that consolidates their funds to advertise for a road. I want the CS to tell us the particular road and the amount, because we know what we get on 22%. The particular road that was consolidated and the amounts. Thank you.
Minister, those are 5. You can now answer. Hold your horses, I'll give you the chance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be very quick because I can see the interest is high. I want to thank my friend, Honorable Mbui. He has asked me the question of how can a minister not be able to identify specific roads that are funded by the specific counties or constituencies for roads that are funded under this allocation by Parliament using public participation. This is the problem, Mr. Speaker. This is where the problem lies. When Parliament is allocating that money, they allocate to the road. They don't allocate to a constituency or a county. So during the itemized budget of Parliament, they allocate to specific road. The only time carer now will discover where that road is when they issue the authority to incur expense, expenditure, to the regional manager, or they advertise the road. That is when, during advertisement, the information now comes out that this is in Kakamega, or is in Kisumu, or is Mombasa, or whichever place. So, but during the budget process, when you people complete the budget process, as the budget is completed, you can't tell exactly where this road is, because it's just a name of road X, road Y. But during now advertisement, once the money is released from Treasury, during advertisement, when you realize, okay, this road is in a particular county. Number two, Mr. Speaker, the 10% allocation by the Ministry and Treasury. First, I want to say, number one, when I came to office, I found that my predecessor had used the same money to fund projects that are multi-year. So they are the ones that we will still support this year and the next financial year to make sure that they finish those projects. Projects, for example, in Fangano Island and other places, Mr. Speaker, which I know offered. And these projects reduce the amount of money that remains under what you famously call CS allocation. The money for this year for that emergency has not been spent yet, because when it was predicted that El Nino will happen, we sat down as a government and agreed that if you spend this money, what will you do to restore roads affected by El Nino? So you are right, Honorable Mbui. What we are going to do after the El Nino process, we have been predicted that by January or February, we will now do an assessment, and then the agencies, KENA and Kura, who control their procurement, will determine which roads are going to be restored. You will help us as members of Parliament under the 10% and 22%, which can be done through those ones. And then under this emergency funding, we will cover the difference for the period. Again, for the benefit of the House, this week the Treasury released the contingency fund of 1 billion shillings for us to enable us to deal with the massive destruction of El Nino at the moment. Again, we have told our agencies we will only use this money to restore structures. The usual maintenance that was always done, we use the resources that we have for maintenance. And as I said, Honorable Speaker, if there is a point I need to overemphasize here, ladies and gentlemen, honorable members, we are going to have a problem with maintenance money. The orphaned roads of care of 5,000 kilometers. With this rain that is coming, you will find potholes in most of your roads, especially those ones that were low volume seal standard. And you know across the country they are now potholed. Some of them, the contractor has not left the site, he has not finished the road, but behind you, you know there are potholes. Why? Because unlike Kenya that tries and Kura, Kera does not have any other location that is set aside to maintain tarmac roads. And you know, you honorable members, you don't want the 22% and the 30% to be transferred to maintain the tarmac roads. That is where we are in catch 22. Number three, Mr. Speaker, is why can't Kera allow each county to advertise their roads? It is indeed allowed. It's only that if Parliament amends the law, the public procurement law, to allow that advertisement of more than 10 million outside the county, then very few will come to Kera. And as a matter of fact, Honorable Mbui, very, very few constituencies, like the one I mentioned, do the consolidation. Because many people are supporting roads of 5 million, 6 million, 7 million. So all the advertisements, actually nearly 95%, happen in the regional level. A few that come to national level when they exceed 10 million is in that regard. And just to answer the Member of Parliament, Lukuyani, I can supply that information later because I didn't come with it. But the information within my knowledge, I know one road in Kikuyu that was about 20-something million that was advertised by Kera because they consolidated their resources. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Moses Musa Sirma has talked about marginalization of his constituency. Well, whereas Eldama Ravine is marginalized, it's not the worst. Lamu East does not have an inch of tarmac. Lamu East does not have an inch of tarmac. Lugari, where I know Lugari, Mr. Speaker. In terms of Lamu East, we have tried this year to try to cover them, to just test the tarmac. We've given them about, under the emergency fund, the same Honorable Mbui was saying, the president directed that we give them at least 15 kilometers, which we launched 2 months ago. There are other counties that are really marginalized. If you look at the allocation for rural roads, it's Tana River.
If Sirma's constituency is not sufficiently marginalized, go to the next.
Mr. Speaker, however, because Honorable Sirma was in the meeting and I know the roads in Eldama Ravine, in Mogotio constituency, the interlinked up to Rongai that they have suggested to the government, we are in the process of designing them so that we see how they can be supported, at least if we get a development partner willing to support. And that is the case for so many roads suggested by honorable members in this House. Mr. Speaker, I have had...
Rosa Buyu just made a statement. If you want to give her an appointment, go ahead.
No, Mr. Speaker, Rosa Buyu, I am shocked, Mr. Speaker, that I have been unable to meet her because, Mr. Speaker, I have not seen her missed call.
She didn't say you are unable to meet her. She said you are unable to be reached.
To be reached. That is why I am shocked because, Mr. Speaker, we have a very long history that dates back to 2004. And so, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that I correct this unfortunate mistake, I will give her an appointment as soon as I leave this door, Mr. Speaker, and I will invite her for a conversation. Not just, Mr. Speaker, I know some colleagues from your constituency county came, but at that time the politics was not so right, so people feared coming to visit me. But Mr. Speaker, Homa Bay did not have a problem. I had a number of leaders from Homa Bay coming to my office. But on a lighter note, I will correct that issue. Mr. Speaker, on the Honorable Emade, I cannot overemphasize the importance, Mr. Speaker, of this House having a conversation with itself on how best to handle this question of public participation resources so that it not only helps us to sort out the pending roads, but Mr. Speaker, can make sure that it corrects any possibilities of marginalization. But I want to hasten, Mr. Speaker, that Turkana, we have done our best as a ministry through with our development partners to provide infrastructure in Turkana County, and we are going to do more in the near future to make sure that those roads are addressed. Mr. Speaker,
Good.
I think...
We'll take the second batch.
I thank you.
Wow. Julia Sunguli.
Mr. Speaker, I want to...
Only one question.
Mine will be actually very brief. Mr. Speaker, I'm interested in the Minister's answer with respect to the low-volume seal roads. And I don't know, because the Minister has given us very bad news, except the good news at the end that he says the government is working hard. But in reality, what is the plan for maintaining those roads? Because some of them, the contractors abandoned before the 3-year period of maintenance. And I'm referring particularly to the road from Kilgoris to Murwadigir and the road from Chebole to Siongiroi, the roads which are terribly dilapidated now. What is the plan, Mr. Minister?
Thank you. Tonkei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the CS has spoken about marginalization. And Mr. Speaker, when you look at Narok, for so many years, Narok has been among the counties that have been marginalized on roads. I want to ask the CS, what is he going to do to address this issue of marginalization? Because, Mr. Speaker, when you talk of other counties being given money for roads, and there are counties that have never seen a tarmac road, what is he going to do to address this issue? Thank you.
Wamboka. One question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. For the record, I come from Bungoma County, and I want the Minister to be aware that all construction works, roads in Bungoma have stalled. All. Starting from Mateka, Bumula, Mianga, going to Misihu Brigadier, Sirisia, all of them are stalled. How do we feel as taxpayers when our roads have stalled, all of them, for more than 3 years, while Muranga, every other day, they get new roads? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Hillary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, most of the roads that stalled, Mr. Speaker, are roads which were designed through marginalization. And the roads the minister is trying to solve, Mr. Speaker, are the roads that were constructed
Hillary,
by...
you are not the minister.
Sorry, sir.
Ask a
I
question.
want to ask the question, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
So, Mr. Speaker, I come from...
has the capacity to answer questions.
I come from Kipkelian constituency, Mr. Speaker,
yes.
And there is a road that is a security road. When there is demonstration and these people of ODM decide to close Awasi, we lose a lot of patients who are supposed to be taken to referral hospital. And we have asked the government of Kenya to construct a security road that will link us to Eldoret without necessarily going through Awasi. And I'm talking about Kericho County, which for the last 5 years didn't get a single tarmac. And if you talk about marginalization, Mr. Speaker, it is the worst marginalized county in the previous regime. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking what the minister is doing to help the situation in Kericho.
Omolher. Omolher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the issue of marginalization, I want to understand the criteria used to allocate these resources, because the Cabinet Secretary is aware of the challenges, and that's why the other day when he came to Garissa, for example, the roads were inaccessible. That's why you had to fly in. Maybe next year when you come, that issue should not be there. You can drive down, and that has to come from the efforts and the goodwill from your side. But I want to understand why a particular county is able to get 1.8, and when I looked at the allocation for Garissa, it's at 100 million.
1.8 what?
So my concern is, if the issue, the need is there, why can't allocations be made as per the needs? Because this creates issues of insecurity. IEDs are planted not in tarmac roads, but roads that are maram and not tarmac. So maybe let's look at this issue holistically to even secure our borders. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Owen Bayer. Minister, those are very short questions. I'll take a few more, and in answering also be precise and concise.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. And, Honorable Minister, you know, you and I, where we come from, we were same place for school. But I want to ask you this. Well, I appreciate what the answers you have given, but you have been accused by members, some of them may not be in this house, that of being arrogant. In fact, one recently in a radio station said that you are Mr. 10% on a radio broadcast. What do you have to say about such accusations, Honorable Minister?
Yes. Wow. I'll give to Badi Twalib.
Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi naitwa Mheshimiwa Bezimba. Sio Badi Twalib. Badi Twalib ni wa Jomvu, mimi ni wa Kisauni.
Who? Bezimba.
Bezimba.
Sorry, Bezimba. My good friend.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
You all wear a turban on your head. So.
Badi havai kofia, mimi ndio ninavaa kofia.
Yes.
Basi ni sawa. Swala langu liko kwa waziri ni kwamba Mheshimiwa Rais alikuja Kisauni akafungua barabara rasmi, akaanzisha barabara rasmi ya kutoka Kiembeni, Mwakirunge, Bondora. Lakini baada ya kuondoka matingatinga yote alimfuata. Hakuna kitu kinaendelea. Sasa leo tueleze una mipango gani na kuna kuendelea nini? Asante.
Thank you. Morugara.
Thank you. Thank you. Bwana CS.
Okay.
Tharaka Nithi is one of those counties that actually got no allocation in those tenders. You've given us an explanation. Tharaka Nithi is also notorious for having stored roads in the 3 constituencies. And those 3 roads are in Chuka Igamba Ng'ombe, we have Chuka Kareni. In Imara constituency, we have Keria Magutuni, and in Tharaka constituency, we have Marimanti Chakariga. Can you kindly give an assurance that there is an allocation for those stored roads which have been outstanding for more than 10 years from today? Thank you.
Thank you. Minister, those are 8. And they are very short questions. Answer them now.
Mr. Speaker, check for me that route. Mr. Speaker, I'll be quick on Honorable Sunkuli's question, Mr. Speaker. As I said earlier, I really don't have that answer, Honorable Sunkuli, from my side. We will have to have a honest conversation, all of us. In fact, I would be happy, Mr. Speaker, if you organize at the beginning of next year, if you have organized a session between our ministry and the whole house, a retreat of some sort, to ask ourselves whether the road maintenance levy, the Roads Act as it is, can continue as it is. What are we going to do with KERA? Because the other roads have fairly annual maintenance. What are we going to do with KERA? Is the 10% and 22%, should it continue just maintaining Maram continuously, while the road that used to be Maram has been upgraded to tarmac, should be abandoned completely without any resources being allocated to it? Mr. Speaker, it ends up sometimes under KERA to advertise them through the support of this house again, to do the budget, the public participation budget. Sometimes we do something called stage improvement. And that's how the Chebole Road got some money for maintenance that are going to be done. So this thing, one of the reasons why I was excited to come and respond to this question is for us to find ways of addressing these 5,000 kilometers that I have christened abandoned roads or orphaned roads that actually don't have allocation of specific resources for maintenance. Number 2, as KERA, after discovering that this low volume seal is just counterproductive, KERA on its own motion stopped all roads. Even if they were advertised under low volume seal, they instructed the contractors to deliver it to the standard required. It's better we deliver a quarter or a 3/4 instead of delivering full and all of it gets chipped away as we work on the resources. Mr. Speaker, and therefore the road from Kilgoris to Emurwa Dikir faces that challenge, and we are still thinking how to do it. Honorable Tonkei was straightforward, just reminding me that to look at other counties that are marginalized, but it's not just the counties. Narok, for example, is a very vast county. Even if you go to the books and see that they have a good number of tarmac, at least the Segenani one was completed. And the one that comes to Mount Narok. But Mr. Speaker, if you look at those roads, they are not enough to serve a vast county like Narok or Marsabit or Kajiado, these counties that have a very big land. So indeed, you can do the tarmac and eventually people are still saying we are marginalized because of the vastness of the land. And if you compare it to a smaller county, then it becomes a problem. The next thing is Honorable Kwamboka of Bumola. Yes, you are right. All your roads have stopped, as a matter of fact. Roads of about 10 billion. And you are not the only one. Almost every county has stopped. And I think as I said earlier, it is going to be beneficiary of this program that the ministry, with the support, with the direction and guidance of His Excellency the President, is trying to find resources to be able to deal with it. Honorable Kosgei, as mentioned, Hilary Kosgei of Kipkelion West. As mentioned, the question of the road. We will not construct the road, Mr. Speaker, because of to address political issues. The ministry is blind to political sides. We serve both sides of the political divide equally because we are the government of Kenya. But the plan for a road that comes from Ainamoi to Mbogo Valley, all the way, Mr. Speaker, to Nandils has been there for over 10 years. And we've completed the design this year, and we are working towards future plans to award resources to make sure that that connectivity is important for access within Nandi County, Kericho County, up to Narok County, and also up to West Pokot and Turkana. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Owen Baya has asked me about a matter that did not happen in this house. Mr. Speaker, oh yeah, sorry, I'll come back. Garissa, I still have it.
Yes.
Garissa, oh sorry, I'll come back to Garissa. The Speaker, of accusation of impropriety. Mr. Speaker, let me start by two things. One, sometimes when I become a little bit tough, people think you are being arrogant. In the particular situation, Mr. Speaker, a honorable member, even though not a member of this house, stood in public square and told the cabinet secretary of the Republic of Kenya, not of our community, that I should ensure that contracts are not given to people who don't come from his community. And he went further, Mr. Speaker, to say that community are full of witches. And therefore, if you give roads to a contractor from that community, we cannot hold that contractor accountable. Mr. Speaker, despite being called arrogant, I had to tell him off, Mr. Speaker. And he's only one person. There is no other member of parliament I've ever told him off. Because, Mr. Speaker, if I kept quiet, upon translation of that message, Mr. Speaker, that contractors cannot work in certain community, or of certain community cannot be given work, I would have abdicated my responsibility as a public servant. I was expecting that NCIC was going to take a stern action against such honorable members, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the question of 10% or 10 billion, 100 billion, Mr. Speaker, I have left that to my lawyers to address, and any honorable member who has an issue should have gone to the relevant institution to deal with it. But let everyone be informed that, Mr. Speaker, I will continue serving, and I will not instruct any government agency to deny people contracts based on their communities, or I will not superintend over a ministry that denies any community road by virtue of how they voted or their tribe. I will not, and I will not stop that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Garissa, Garissa is one of the marginalized counties, Mr. Speaker. That's a fact. But they are also a beneficiary of a major program we are doing with our development partners. The road from Lamu to Ijara, Mr. Speaker, was badly delivered. And, Mr. Speaker, when the president was elected, that's the first project we called the contractor and told the contractor he not only needs to go back to do the work, but that road must be tarmacked. And I believe that once we support that contractor, we'll tarmac. The road from Garissa to Isiolo, Mr. Speaker, is also ongoing at the moment. The road, Mr. Speaker, of Modogashe, the road from Isiolo, Kulamawe, and Kulamawe, Modogashe. The contractor is on site, Mr. Speaker, and has reached almost 10% of the project. There is a good number of projects in the northern part of our country that, if delivered, Mr. Speaker, will help us deal with insecurity and deal with marginalization, because the contract sum is not less than 60 billion, Mr. Speaker. And I invite my honorable member, as we continue implementing this project, it includes building of hospitals, it includes fiber optic, it includes building of some of the schools. I came to this house for vetting a year ago. I promised, Mr. Speaker, that I will do everything possible to ensure that the marginalized counties are brought to be part and parcel of our country, particularly the northern part of the country where Al-Shabaab characters are trying to play around, Mr. Speaker. Tarmacking the roads will make sure that there are no IEDs that are going to be hidden below the road, Mr. Speaker, and therefore affect our people. I am confident that in 5 years, Northeastern will not be the same Northeastern we've known. Mr. Speaker, the last is Kisauni. It is not true, even though the contractor is limping, Mr. Speaker, and is a son of that region, Mr. Speaker, or an elder from that region. Mr. Speaker, the contractor is on site. He is always calling carer, coming to my office for purpose of support. So he is there, but he's limping, like many other contractors. And we are going to do everything possible to see how we support them to remain on site. The last thing is Honorable Murugara. Mr. Speaker, it is true that Tharaka-Nithi is one of the most marginalized in that regard, and I know your roads, including Chakarika Marimanti, that I went there in 2013, 2014, that has not been delivered. Mr. Speaker, at least you have a road portfolio of about 7 billion. We are doing our best to see that one is completed fast, but we have discussed with you. I don't want to say further on how to survive on connecting the other roads that we have a challenge in Tharaka-Nithi County, Mr. Speaker. The last thing, there is some honorable member who said, Mr. Speaker, that the roads in his county are not progressing, but in Muranga, they are progressing. If you are watching the news, the honorable member from Muranga, Kehongi here, who is my friend for many years when he was a councillor, was on news hammering me because also contractors in his county have stalled. As I said earlier, Mr. Speaker, everybody thinks the neighbor is eating. So the one who is in Muranga thinks that the one in Nandi is getting roads. The one in Nandi thinks it's the one in Homa Bay. The one in Homa Bay thinks the one in Kisumu. So let's not blame each other. We shall be able to deliver these roads if we work together. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You know, for a cow, grass is always green across the fence. Honorable members, just lower your guard. You know, seeing the interest and the time available, I've already done 1 hour, 15 minutes on this question. Can I promise you that upon resumption from recess, I will call a Kamkunji to which this minister can come and respond to your issues? Because even if I give 5, the whole house wants to ask something. Yeah. I've seen your hands in the air. Mele Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance. And
The last 5 is the last batch. If you are unlucky, the rain doesn't drop on everybody standing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the chance, and I want to thank the CS for his response. Mr. Speaker, I also want to just thank the CS for mentioning and acknowledging that the 300 million that was put in Fangano Island was done by the previous administration. And I'm hoping that this administration will therefore ensure that it is tarmacked. But my question is this, Mr. Speaker. I've listened to the CS very carefully. That is putting back the blame to Parliament and also saying that the grass may look greener to somebody in Homa Bay, maybe because I don't know what's happening in Muranga. Now, I sit in the budget committee, so I look at the grass from the budget committee, and I know from the budget committee that there is iniquity. What I would like to ask is that time when he'll be coming for the Kamkunji, can he come with the amount that has been allocated for public participation? Because I'm shocked at the amounts. They are not even in budget committee that you are talking about. Can you come with the amounts that you are talking about being in public participation? The discretionary 7 billion that you have, and the rest of the budget, so that we know whether there is actually equity in every of those allocations.
Thank you.
Because otherwise we'll just be cheating each other here, Mr. Speaker. So can he please avail that for us? Because it's, I know he can't avail it now, but can he avail all that during the Kamkunji? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Osoro. I'll give you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to appreciate Speaker for coming in defense of a community that has been also a subject of the attack across. But that is not the question. The question, Honorable Speaker, to him specifically, while we appreciate and empathize with the economic status of the country and the challenges that, of course, the ministry faces in regard to balancing and reinstating the contractors back to site, there are regions, Honorable Speaker, that construction is ongoing. The road construction has resumed. The stalled projects have resumed, the contractors have resumed work. because of the change of their priority from GOK to fuel levy. What criteria does the ministry use to allocate particular roads to fuel levy, which is almost available, and let others remain under GOK, and then engage and wait to engage with development partners across the, abroad, so that they can resume duty? What criteria do they use? Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Korere.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to put this question across to the Minister, and I know the Minister understands very well the issue of marginalization and insecurity. He has mentioned the issue of security roads under the budget that is directly comes from his office. Waziri, I want to tell you, yesterday, there was an attack in my constituency by bandits coming from Tiati. And an NPR was injured, and he had to be carried by others for 15 kilometers on their backs because there was no car that could access the road between Mugie to Shuro to bring that fellow to Mowarak for first aid. Waziri, as we talk today, I had to organize this morning for airlifting that person who lost a lot of blood. Right now is in ICU because a security road I've talked about for the last more than 10 years has never been done. I want to plead with you that if nothing else in Laikipia North, the road between Mugie and Shuro, please, Waziri. We really, otherwise, these fellows will finish us. Finally, the road...
One question at a time.
The road from Nanyuki, neighbor to Doldol. Waziri, we know when you talk about marginalization, I think Laikipia North will qualify to be the marginalized of marginalized. That road is 65 kilometers. It has been awarded and cancelled for the last 10 years. As we speak today, Waziri, coming from Nanyuki to Doldol will take you 4 hours because that road is completely unmotorable.
Milemba.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, in the House
What
of
is it, Kamket? What is it? I'm not going to give you any. Tiati is not Kamket, and Kamket is not Tiati. Take your seat. Take your seat.
Honourable Speaker.
And we are not holding you responsible for the attacks from Tiati. It's just a place. Go on.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, in the House of Rules and Records. The CS and members could be forgetting this, indicted this House and said the imbalance in distribution of roads was courtesy of the House. He did not withdraw, but he did not table the list of imbalances that have been caused by this House. It is very important that for us to also reprieve and vindicate ourselves, the CS tables to you, Honourable Speaker, the list of imbalances that we caused in the so-called public participation roads. Finally, Honourable Speaker, in the same spirit of imbalance, a road was made 5 years between Kombewa and Maseno. And the bit just stopped in the side of Nyanza. The part that remains in Muhaya and Luanda has remained for the last 6 years. Could the CS speak on this? Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable Member for Wajir South.
Thank you very much, Mr.
This is the
Speaker.
last batch, Waziri.
Actually, it's baffling to hear the pampered parts of the country complaining about marginalization. What are we to say, those of us from northeastern Kenya?
Ask your question.
Which is a monument for marginalization. Mr. Speaker, my question is, there is a difference between bad roads and no roads. What we have in northeastern Kenya are no roads. We cannot even describe them as roads. As we speak, 3.5 weeks is what it's, for the last 3.5 weeks, no vehicle has entered my constituency. And we keep hearing from the government promises that they will deliver the Horn of Africa Gateway project, which many people in Northeastern today believe is a hoax. The road is 50 kilometers away from Wajir. When are we going to see contractors on the ground building that road, which the people of Northeastern Kenya have been waiting for the past 60 years? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Cynthia Muge. Give her the mic.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to appreciate you, the Chair, and the President of the Republic of Kenya for making it possible for the CSS to appear before this House and answer serious and pertinent questions. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I was part of the people that went to the office of the CS, whom he says 26 counties have been there, and he was not generous with information and data, but I want to appreciate him for being fair today. My question, Honorable Speaker, is that what exactly is emergency? Because when I look at the road that was considered under emergency in Nandi County, I fail to understand what is emergency. On that question again, Honorable Speaker, I want to ask the CS, what measures is he putting in place to ensure that this emergency, whatever it means, is not used to perpetuate iniquity in the allocation of road funds, Honorable Speaker?
Wow. Member, is it Kimilu? Kimilu. Yes, you are Kimilu, right? Yeah, give to Kimilu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the CS, from my desk, Mr. Speaker, I wrote 8 letters to the CS, and he has never answered any letter concerning the road from Sultan Ahmud, which connects Kajiado and Makueni through Kilungu. And Mr. Speaker, that road was started 2016, and only 3 kilometers, which has not been done up to date. I want to know the CS, why is he not responding to my letters and the measures he's taking, because now the road is completely cut off at a place called Kikoko, and it's not passable, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Minister, honorable members, we must have a cutoff. Minister, can you answer those 8 interventions? Order, Ruku, take your seat.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
And the general questions, Minister, marginalization,
and
inadequate resources, inequitable distribution.
As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, yes, the question asked by my friend Honorable Mili regarding the roads that we supported in Fangano Island, Mr. Speaker, through the emergency funding. Again, Mr. Speaker, Fangano Island is one of the marginalized places. No single road, no access to the highland. And Mr. Speaker, we thought it is one of the places that should have emergency support. The plans were done in the previous administration, but was not supported. So when I got to office, Mr. Speaker, I had a choice to sign for allocation of those resources or to go back to the political cocoons, Mr. Speaker, of saying the MP is from this party or the region is this region, and withdraw signing those resources. Instead, Mr. Speaker, being a nationalist and being a public servant, I did what is right to be done by making sure that Fangano Island gets its rightful share. And it's not Fangano Island only. Honorable Mili knows that there are further resources supporting more roads in Homa Bay that we have supported. Mr. Speaker, on the question of, so I agree that the report, which was a question for Honorable Mboko Milema, and Honorable Milson here, Millie Odhiambo, is that, Mr. Speaker, I just don't want to say the information is with the same budget committee that Honorable Millie sits in. Actually, it's the budget you passed yourselves. If the Budget Policy Office was to be asked today to bring it and print for every member of parliament, you would have it in this house. In fact, I will struggle more to get that report than yourselves. But nevertheless, since I respect the orders of this house, and as has been requested by members of parliament, I will table that report to the house based on the directives. Mr. Speaker, it is not true. The majority whip, Mr. Speaker, said some places the roads are ongoing under RMLF. It is not allowed, Mr. Speaker, for road maintenance levy to support fully development. What happens is that there is a process called stage improvement that we try to support. And sometimes it is for the roads that have been worn out that are actually being maintained. It rarely happens that you start from zero a road using road maintenance levy. But there are cases like the one I said of Lamu, where because of outright marginalization, we end up doing it because we want to make sure that those people and those areas and some places where there are security problems so that we can bring them to the stage where all of us must be. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Honorable Sarah Korere, it is true. I am very much aware, Mr. Speaker, about the road from Churo, Mukie, Amaya, Tangul Bay, up to Chemalingot, Loruk, up to Loruk actually, both requested by Honorable Sarah Korere and Honorable Kamket. This is a very strategic road, Mr. Speaker. I have been saying between that road and the one that goes to Kapedo and then Lokichar, Mr. Speaker, we should be able to ask our development partners to support us. If we do those two roads, we will have dealt a big blow to banditry and bandits in this republic. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I will be submitting this proposal to our development partners to try to support us in the same project that I have been doing in the roads that are in the northern part of the country. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Dol Dol Road, it is true. We will do everything, as I have already explained to the Honourable Member elsewhere, to see how we can support. And Honourable Kiunjuri was also one of the members that came to ask this question before in my office. On the question of Kombere Maseno Road, there was no, Mr. Speaker, deliberate decision to separate the people of Nyanza and the Western by doing only Kisumu and supporting the other side. It's just that the contractor stopped somewhere near the border to Mwaya. Mr. Speaker, as soon as we get the resources, it is part of the rubric of the roads we support. He will continue to complete the road to its logical end. On the Wajir constituency, I want to assure the Honourable Member that most of the Horn of Africa projects, the contractors have now been identified, they are going on site, and that, Mr. Speaker, the remaining that one we re-advertised and one that is about to be advertised will change the northeastern part of the country. Mr. Speaker, Honourable Cynthia Muge, my friend, has raised a very important issue as far as emergency fund. It is true that in one of his projects in our county, we supported through emergency funding, particularly in a place where there is a TTC and MTC and everything, and things were a problem in Mosoriot, Mr. Speaker. I will make sure that this is not going to happen in other parts of the country or across the country, that it's not going to be dispersed marginally. What we did in Mosoriot, Honorable Cynthia, is exactly what we did in Fangano Island to support places, because particularly Nandi County, when I realized that they had not got any new project for many years, we had to support Mosoriot Township roads, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that we address that marginalization. And for avoidance of doubt, Mr. Speaker, because this debate has been going on for long, Nandi County, Mr. Speaker, roads that have stalled since 2014. Mr. Speaker, the roads that connect, that are in Tinderet constituency and Masop constituency, Mr. Speaker, and Chesumei, we have re-advertised those roads in a very short time. And we thank the Attorney General for cooperating with my office to allow us to re-advertise those roads to get a good contractor, Mr. Speaker, who is going to deliver. I know some of their local leaders have said they don't want contractors from certain country. But Mr. Speaker, my business is to make sure that we get a contractor that has the capacity to deliver roads for the people of Nandi. I am not in the business of knowing, Mr. Speaker, or facilitating friends of politicians or individuals to get contracts. My business is to tell the agency, use proper tendering process and get us contractors who can get the people of Nandi from the morass and the problems they have had from 2014, and not to please certain individuals who have certain contractors who are in their pockets, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, finally, the Sultanahmud Road, I am reliably informed, Mr. Speaker, that this is also one of those roads that have waited for far too long to get the support of the government. And I want to inform you, Honorable Kimilu, that the first thing I want to say is that all letters from members of parliament, we mark it to the relevant office of the PS, and we put all the requests on a dashboard to make sure that we track and implement. The only problem is that I get at least 200-300 letters. Maybe we have not been able. Sometimes an MP writes a letter and writes a reminder. So maybe the mistake on our side is not replying back to the members of parliament. But as a matter of fact, every single letter that comes from honorable member, and whether from this House or Senate or other leaders in the country, are documented, and it informs the prioritization of the roads. And for your road in the Sultanahmud, we are now assessing it for purpose of restoration, at least because of this El Nino situation. As you know, El Nino at the moment is affecting Northeastern, Coast, and Upper Eastern, and the Lower Eastern. All those places, the initial assessment is that we need about 15 billion first to restore the road. That is why the 1 billion we got from contingency fund, we are just using it to make sure that we connect counties. And that's why the place in Abaswein there, Kotulo to Mandera, I was in Garissa the other day. Today, if you see the news today or you get the information from social media, the road in Lamu, connecting Lamu to Mombasa, has been destroyed because of the rains. And so we will continue assessing it. Eventually, we will now sit down and say, what is there from emergency fund? What can we come back to this House to try to allocate for purpose of restoration of our roads? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I'm afraid we have to end here. I'm sorry to all those members who have burning questions. I've assured you I'll give you a kamkunji with this minister, and I'll give you time to ask each and every conceivable question. Some members have come here with very burning issues and very genuine and legitimate concerns, and time is not on our side now. We have spent almost 1.5 hours on one question. Let's move to the next order. Yes, Minister?
Speaker, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here. I know there was a specific question sent to me regarding Mau Mau roads, Mr. Speaker. It falls within all these roads that are pending across the country are the same. And we do not discriminate on any road because it is Mau Mau or it is any other road. I don't know, Christian, whatever. We are going to support all these roads as soon as we get the resources. And no part of the country has received more consideration than the other. And even as Honorable Mukunji has been pushing me, we will make sure that we compensate those who need to be compensated. We also check some counties like Embu, that though neighboring counties have Mau Mau roads, is one of also the marginalized counties in that region. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I seriously beg you, Mr. Speaker, this is a formal setting. But if next year you can put for us a day, we have an informal setup to discuss the future of our roads with the honorable members, we will be very grateful from the ministry side.
Get in touch with my office.
I thank you,
Mr.
Speaker.
Agree on the program and the timing. Honorable members, yes, can I hear your suggestion? Jared?
Honorable Speaker, a very quick one. When I firstly saw the list which has generated debate here, I firstly thought that it was fake. And I believed at worst that the minister was going to distance himself from this list, but he has owned it. Honorable Speaker, this is my suggestion. Because it has been demonstrated here beyond doubt that there was a lot of inequalities in the distribution of these roads. Why can't the minister go back and cancel everything so that we begin on a new slate, Honorable Speaker? Just like CDF, which cuts across all constituencies within the Republic of Kenya. Why can't we adopt this model? Because even with the upsurge of El Nino flooding now, Honorable Speaker, Bungoma, where you come from, and I was shocked that even the third in command's county was left out of this scheme, Honorable Speaker. Why can't we start from afresh, have all those tenders already given out, cancelled, so that we have equal distribution of these monies? Because with El Nino, each and every place in this country is now under a lot of attack on those roads, Honorable Speaker. Nyando constituency, so as I finish, Honorable Speaker, Nyando is not...
Thank you. We will prosecute all this in the Kamkunji. Thank you, Jared, for mentioning my county. Yes. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Jared is my friend, and I think I ably prosecuted the part of the question until members have agreed that we need to sit together and see the public participation resources. So on the question of floods, we will make sure that we will not distribute equally. We will have to distribute based on the damage, because this is a restoration fund. We must deal, the roads that are going to be affected most must receive the highest resources. And as you can see now, the northeastern part and parts of Nyanza, and as I said, upper eastern, lower eastern, and coast are the most affected in the country. We hope that in the next 1 month, we don't have also highest El Nino roads on the western part of the country, because as I have told you, we cannot carry the burdens that come with this El Nino any further with the resources, the little resources we have.
Thank you, CS. You may now take your leave. Honorable members, you remember I informed the House that the Honorable Alice Nganga and Honorable Sheikh will be given 15 minutes each to address the House. We now go to that, which is still at statement level. Between the two of you, who goes first? Honorable Alice Nganga or Sheikh? Alice, you can go first. Hold on, they call. We're still at statements, right? Yes, go ahead, Alice.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to make a statement on legislative proposal, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2023. The legislative proposal seeks to amend Article 89 of the Constitution to provide that the Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission shall ensure that the second review of constituencies shall not result in the loss of a constituency. Honorable Speaker, as you are aware, the first review was undertaken in March 2012 by the Andrew Rigare team, which is now the de facto interim Independent Boundary Review Commission. Honorable Speaker, the 2012 boundary review did not, however, result to the loss of any constituency, despite the constituencies not complying with the population quota requirement. Honorable Speaker, this was due to the provision in the Constitution, which is found in the 6th schedule to the Constitution, in particular paragraph 27(4), which provide that the Boundary Commission shall ensure that the first review of the constituencies undertaken in terms of the Constitution shall not result in the loss of a constituency existing on the effective date. Honorable